Hello guys, so the fourth dev diary for Imperator Rome came out a few days ago. Actually, it's probably quite a few days ago by this point. We're coming close to the 5th. But I wanted to have a little bit of a talk about it. So I mentioned this on one of my Imperium Universalis videos that probably won't have come out by the time that this video comes out. But it gave me the kind of idea that I wanted to talk about my issues, let's say, with what is shown in the dev diary. So I think first off we should probably go and have a read through what is in the dev diary. So here we go. Hello everyone and welcome to the 4th dev diary for Imperator. This time we'll take a look at the different types of units an army can have in the game. Archers. These units can assault, prefer to fight from the second row, and can be built by anyone. They're good versus infantry, but weaker versus cavalry. They're cheap and fast to build. These units, camels, prefer to fight in the flanks. They require the camel trade good to be built, quick to build, move quickly, strong versus lightly armoured types. Cavalry prefer to fight on the flanks, require the horse trade good to be built. They're more expensive to build and move quickly, countered by heavy infantry and war elephants, but very good against everything else. Chariots can be built if you have the Celtic or Mauryan. I don't know if that's how you pronounce Mauryan, but basically Mauryan, for those of you who don't know, is basically northern India, Pakistan kind of region. They're rather cheap to build, they're good at fighting light infantry but weak against other units. Heavy infantry can assault and require the iron trade good to be built, not cheap, but are really good against cavalry, light infantry and chariots. Horse archers prefer to fight in the second row and require the steppe horse trade good to be built. They cost similar to cavalry and are deadly to slow moving units. Light cav, fight in the flanks, require horses, not very expensive, move quick, weak against most units, but strong against archers and light infantry. And light infantry can assault, can be built by everyone, cheap and quick, but weak against everything. And then war elephants require elephant trade goods to be built, expensive to build, but are very good against units that cannot quickly run away. We'll talk about this modern thing later, but yeah, let's go back to the top. And straight away, the first thing that I'm thinking, oh, hang on, that doesn't seem quite right, is archers. So, for better or worse, Imperator Rome, Rome is the focal point of the game. Yes, you can play anybody that was around in that time. You could go and play as the boy, you could go play as Macedon, or probably Lydia's going to be there, all these Iberian, Gallic and North African tribes, Garamantes, Carthage, blah blah blah, whatever. Yes, they're all in the game, but Rome is the focal point. And straight away, Rome didn't use archers. Not in the start date that we're looking at here. Archers, well, for one, it says here they're cheap and fast to build, and that does not sound like archers to me, not in this period. Archers were quite expensive because the wood just wasn't of a good enough quality to make bows. Arrows took a very long time to manufacture because there was just no standardized kind of way to make these things. I think archers, they can be fixed by just renaming them to skirmishers. And that way, yes, there will be archers in there, and yes, we can now have javelins and slingers, which were hell lot more prevalent. Oh, hell lot, that's a silly word to say. They're a hell of a lot more prevalent in this time period than archers were. Archers, you have your standout kind of cultures that use them. The Cretan archers were very famous. We also have, Indians used them quite frequently. The hordes, Persia used them, mostly on horseback, but yeah, Persia used them. Lots of the Chinese used them. But Rome, no. Any other kind of European, not really, other than the Cretans, or from Crete, obviously. Alright, so yeah, that will be my first issue, and I think that can be fixed just by changing the name to skirmishers, and that would include the peltas, that would include velites, Balearic slingers, archers for those cultures that use them. They would work in roughly the same way, and yes, it says here, prefer to fight from the second row. That's not really how the skirmishers worked. They would be basically a screen for the main block of infantry. They would fight the opposing skirmishers and then they would retreat before the main lines engaged. But if we take second row to just be an abstract of not in direct hand-to-hand combat, then perhaps you can sort of get away with it thinking like that. But okay, let's move on to camels. As far as I know, the idea that camels were used as a military unit, or like a shock cavalry kind of unit, or anything like that, is just completely false. It's mythological. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I've seen a lot of people bring this up. On r/AskHistorians, I saw a post maybe a couple of months ago asking about camels being used as, in battle, and they basically just said it was completely false. It just didn't happen. Like, it may have happened a couple of times, but that was more a case of, ambushes and the camels being ambushed and then being sort of forced into having to fight, but actually being used in a set-piece battle? No. Cavalry, I don't really have a problem with this. Countered by heavy infantry. This sort of makes me think that heavy infantry are an abstract for pretty much everything. So, heavy infantry could be, if you take the Romans, they could be triarii, they could be, what are the other kinds called? There's hastati, and there's another one that I've forgotten the name of. But basically, I think heavy infantry is just like an allegory for any kind of infantry that has armor. And it doesn't matter what they're armed with. It could be a gladius, it could be a pike, it could be spear, it could be an axe, any number of things. That's what it's sort of giving me the feeling for, because, yes, cavalry, they should be weak versus heavy infantry, even if these heavy infantry are using just short gladiuses. Gladiuses? I don't fucking know. But yeah, they should be, because despite what you've seen in films and what you've seen in Total War games or whatever, cavalry generally wouldn't charge headlong into a big block of well-drilled, packed units full of shields and spiky things coming out of them. Horses aren't suicidal. That's not something they would do. So in these Total War games, when you can just click your heavy cavalry unit and have them charge straight into a pikeman formation from the front, yeah, wouldn't happen. Those horses would not do that. Of course, there are numerous examples of horses charging in from the front. The companion cavalry of Alexander, great example of that. But that's sort of, I don't know, it's not the norm, and I don't know how he managed to do that. And I don't think he was charging in against, pikes from the front. Otherwise, Alexander's empire would have died quite quickly. Quite a lot quicker than it did in his story. Anyway. Okay, so cavalry, not really got too much of a problem with that. I think if you are going like sort of mythological route and you want to add camels in, then they should have a bonus versus cavalry. Because there is actually quite a few sources that say that cavalry kind of shit scared of camels, didn't like the smell. And having seen a camel in real life, don't blame them, they smell fucking awful. Anyway, moving on. Chariots, these can be built of your Celtic or Mauryan traditions. Celtic makes me think it's not just the modern idea of Celtic, which is, Ireland, Wales, Scotland, parts of Brittany, but like all of Gaul would be classed as sort of Celtic, because they did occasionally use chariots. They're more likely to be, you'd be more likely to see chariots in the British Isles, though. Maybe it gives sort of a hint at cultures, but it's really far too early to tell. Good against light infantry, weak against others. Fine. Heavy infantry back on here require iron trade goods to build. I kind of like the idea that you need trade goods to build certain units, but I feel like this might be very restrictive. There's only, 3 types of infantry in this list. Archers, which are, again, I don't like the naming of that, heavy infantry and light infantry. And even in the at ParadoxCon, when Johan was talking about Imperator Rome, he made a joke that light infantry were fucking garbage, which I hated because it's wrong. But yeah, he made a joke about light infantry being terrible. But if you don't have iron, or you're not trading for iron, maybe that's a thing that you can do. If you're not trading for iron, or you don't have iron, you're only going to have light infantry, and you're going to get steamrolled by fucking everybody. Because there's no units here that light infantry are good against. Although, having a look at this is a pila. This weapon here is a pila. So is this one here. So, are light infantry skirmishers? Oh, the plot thickens. I don't know. I really hope that the next Dev Diary is sort of like an addendum to this one to clear up the misconceptions, because looking through the comments, there's like 15 or 16 pages of mostly people saying, no, this is wrong. But yeah, okay, so that's that. Light cavalry, pretty much the same as horse archers and the other ones, they just fight in a slightly different way. Horse archers, by the way, fight from the second row, this definitely makes me think that it's more of an abstract, not fighting hand to hand, rather than actually being from the second row and shooting over the heads of your own soldiers. Yeah, deadly to slower moving units, that works for me, yeah. Light cavalry, weak against most units, but strong against archers and light infantry, because light infantry are weak against everybody. Yeah, Although, I would say that if they are light infantry, as in what I would understand light infantry to be, so, sort of like your militia kind of unit, not very well armed, not very well armored, they would actually be probably what you'd want to put in the path of a war elephant, because they can move out the way of it, and then throw a javelin into its side. Light infantry are much, much more effective against war elephants than the heavy infantry, the hastati, all the Roman infantry ever were. Light infantry killed war elephants, not heavy. But moving on, war elephants require elephant trade goods to be built, so you're probably looking at just North Africa and India for those. Very expensive, yep, fine. Good against other units that cannot quickly run away. I wonder if morale is going to be a big thing for war elephants, because, I mean, when a war elephant in history would lose its morale, let's say it that way, they would rampage and not just run away. I mean, they probably ran away as well sometimes, but rampaging was a thing that did occasionally occur, sometimes through your own lines. I wonder if that's going to be a thing. Anyway, I think that it's a little bit bad to critique something without offering something in the way of offering something different, offering an improvement, or offering something that you think would be better, right? So that's exactly what I've done. So if we take a look to the next slide, we've got this that I've done, and let me just go through this real quick. So the first one, it's just the armies lined up. We've got the green team and we've got the red team. If you don't know these NATO symbols, basically the X is infantry, this diagonal line is cavalry, and then this line here is skirmishers. Basically what I'm proposing here is we have 3 lines, not just 2 as there are in European Universalis 4. So yeah, I would love to see 3 lines. So first phase of the combat would be, basically I think we should change it into 2 phases in combat. So like, how EU4 has shock and fire, but instead of it being, shock then fire, then shock then fire, then shock then fire, it would be skirmish for a little while, I don't know, a couple of days or something, maybe until morale breaks, or I don't know, some arbitrary period when that ends. and then we would move on to the combat phase, so skirmish, then combat. So this here is the skirmish phase. We've got the skirmishers fighting the skirmishers, the cavalry fighting the cavalry. Of course, if I'd made these armies slightly different compositions to one another, there'd be cavalry fighting skirmishers. And I would say that, you know, maybe fire and shock can be a thing. So skirmishers in the fire phase would wreck cavalry, but as soon as the shock phase comes around, the cavalry would wreck the skirmishers. That could be a thing. So yeah, maybe fire and shock for both skirmish and combat phases? Maybe. That could actually be really cool. That's something I'm just coming up with now. So yes, the skirmish lines, including cavalry, would clash, and then the result of that would be, you know, some die or run away on both sides. Green team came out ahead. Go Greens. Anyway, moving on. This would be the start of the combat phase, and basically what you see here, instead of these guys retreating to the second row, they would instead retreat to the flanks. And on the flanks they would fight the remnants of the enemy's skirmishers. And once the enemy skirmishers are dead, in the fifth row here, we would see that the cavalry would swing around to the rear of the enemy infantry, and the skirmishers would fire into the flanks. I think for this to work, you would need infantry on infantry combat to last quite a while. And I think, I mean, looking at I follow a lot of history channels on YouTube, the likes of Baz Battles, History Marsh, Historia Civilis. Did I say Baz Battles already? Yeah, but I follow a lot of them. And anytime I see them talking about Roman conflicts, especially I love seeing the ones about the Punic Wars, the infantry engagements generally took quite some time. Like the Battle of Cannae, the famous one where Hannibal encircled the Roman army and slaughtered it to a man. After the encirclement happened, that combat lasted for a very long time. Like all day they took stepping in and stabbing Romans and slaughtering them to a man. It took a long time to kill that many men. So I'm thinking maybe combats could be long, and infantry would kill each other very, very slowly, but their morale would break because quite a lot faster if you've got cavalry in the rear and skirmishers to the side. This system that I'm proposing here would mean that a lot of your infantry, so the main bulk of your army, is going to come out of a battle unscathed, whereas your skirmishers, which are cheaper, would be kind of wrecked, even though they're very, very important. So, see here, like the infantries are completely equal, but because the green side has more skirmishers and cavalry, the flanking bonuses here would be quite devastating to the red army. That's my proposal, anyway. So let me know what you think about that. Just quickly, I want to go back to this, because I also want to propose a little bit of a difference to this. Because a lot of people in this thread have been saying that, oh, why can't we have, pike blocks, the phalanx? Why can't we have this infantry type and this infantry type? And I mean, it is very clear that this kind of breakdown to, cavalry versus infantry here is totally one-sided when really it shouldn't be. There was a hell of a lot more variety in infantry types than there were cavalry or mounted types. So what I propose is actually stripping it down even further. And I would love to see a system whereby your units had upgrades. Basically, you would have a basic infantry unit. We'd get rid of heavy cavalry, we'd get rid of heavy infantry, we'd get rid of archers, skirmishers, whatever. We'd get rid of light infantry, and you would have infantry. So these would basically just start off as standard unarmored, lightly armed melee infantry block. And you could upgrade these with different things you could put into that infantry block. Things like a pike, or heavy armor, or a spear, or pila. Maybe you could have multiple slots that you could upgrade your units with. And then just using that system of upgrades, you could make yourself a phalanx, you could make yourself some hastati, you could make yourself some triarii, you could make yourself any number of infantry units, because the difference in the types of units that you saw in, you know, I was about to say medieval, I mean the antiquity battles, the armies of antiquity. Yes, there was tactics differences, but tactics came from the equipment that they used. So just changing the equipment would give you a hell of a lot more variety than heavy infantry, light infantry, archers, right? Take cavalry for an example as well. Here we have, on horses, 1, 2, 3. 3 different horse types, which is, again, equal to the amount of infantry we have. You could probably even include chariots in this if you want. So, yeah, cavalry starts off with just dude on a horse with a sword. And your upgrades could include armor, better horses, horse armor, shields, spear weapons, bows for your horse archers, and fuck, even chariots could be an upgrade. You know, just, it doesn't have to be, don't think of upgrade as a, you know, like leveling up, but more a case of, you know, things that you add onto your units. So like implants, perhaps, would be a better term for it. Maybe even split the infantry into, you know, melee infantry and skirmishers, and then your skirmishers could start off with perhaps a javelin, and your implants or upgrades could include like slings, bows, armor, shields. Elephants could even be done with this system as well. You have things like riders would have bows or javelins or armored elephants. I don't even know if they were a thing, but fuck, you could do it this way. Chariots and camels, and went over chariots already. Camels, again, I don't even know if they were used in real battles, so who the fuck knows. But yeah, I think to fully represent the amount of units a game of the antiquity needs, you kind of have to have a layer just above unit type. There needs to be something to differentiate between Roman infantry and Greek infantry, and this here, it really doesn't cut it. And I think an upgrade system could do it quite nicely. So, yeah, I'm going to leave it here. So, let me know what you thought of my little video here. Do you agree with me? Is there anything that I've gotten wrong? So, I watch a lot of history YouTube videos because I find it fascinating. But I'm not a historian, so if there are people out there who know more than me, and I'm fairly certain there are going to be, and you know what, I've probably made mistakes in this video talking about history. Hell, I couldn't even remember the third type of, you know, Roman infantry unit. But if there's anything I got wrong, please do tell me in the comments below. If you think my idea is terrible, please do tell me in the comments below. Tell me what you think it should be, or if you think that Paradox has this system nailed and this is a perfect system, please give me your reasons why. I would very much like to hear them. So yeah, likes and comments and all that good shit, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye for now.